So having the courage to step out and to lead courageously is going to help fulfill that purpose too. And then finally, it is to accept the higher reward. And so this is speaking specifically to religion and Christianity, that our time here on the earth is limited, and we should be acting accordingly in life, expecting that our higher reward is going to come when we merit with our eternal Father, right? A life after death. And so I think those four things are going to help you kind of wrap your mind around like, what is a man? What are the values that they have? And I think that is going to help you define what your purpose is.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Rodack. Welcome to the Rising Father podcast. I have Drew Camp with me. He's the founder of TEDCO, an awesome fatherhood brand and supplement brand, health brand I've been following over the past few months now. They have an awesome new pre-workout out, and they're all about helping fathers improve themselves, to improve their families, and lead from the front. Welcome, Drew.
Thank you, Chris, for having me on, man. It's an honor to be here.
You bet, man. So what caused you to start TEDCO?
Man, that is a loaded question.
Yeah. Get right into it.
Yeah, right. Oh, just bam, right off the bat. So I was in the military. Was in the Army for a few years, active duty. I'm still serving the National Guard. And on active duty, had the opportunity to deploy to Afghanistan. And when a lot of guys transition back to to stateside and really get out of the military, there's almost like a lack of purpose, right? Like a lack of you have a clear mission, right? When you're at war, right? There's the bad guy, and you're the good guy, and your mission is to go destroy the bad guy. So it's very clear, black and white. But when you get out of the military, a lot of guys struggle with transition, and I was no different with that, and kind of finding fulfillment, finding purpose. And I tell you what, man, the second I had my first daughter, that purpose void was filled, right? Like I know what I'm supposed to do now. Is to raise her. So since then I've had another daughter and I've had a son. So we've got 3 kids total now. And probably the two most important things in my life are family and fitness. I was a collegiate athlete, played baseball. So fitness was a big part of my journey there. And obviously in the military, fitness is a big part as well. And then once I became a father, that's really like the most important aspect, right? And so that and given a sense of kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, I've always had that, and so try to think of what can I do to merge the two, really to help dads. And so TEDCO was founded, or the Epic Dad Company, and our mission is really to change the culture by creating more epic dads. When we take a step back and just look at culture broadly, right? Like I think there's been a degradation of cultural norms for the past 40 or 50 years. So we just look at increases in poverty, increases in mental illness and suicide, et cetera. And I feel like we oftentimes try to just put a Band-Aid or a policy onto that problem and think it'll solve it. But when we take a step back and look at the common denominator, it really starts in the home, and it starts with the dad that's not being the leader he needs to be. So that's kind of our mission, is like, how do we help empower dads to step up to be the leaders, athletes, and providers that they need to be? 1, to change themselves to be a better person. 2, to change their family. But then 3 is that's going to impact the community more broadly. And then over time, that's going to create a better culture. So although we're a supplement brand, we sell supplements. That's really not our mission to sell more supplements. We want to help change the culture.
I love that. Spoke a lot of wisdom in there. And there's definitely been over the past, 20, 30 years, just from media, from television shows, from movies, the way fathers are portrayed is not probably the way you would want your son to grow up to be. You really have to put your own stamp on what you want your son to look like, or the kind of guy you want your daughter to marry. And if you allow it to be up to the internet, to be up to social media, to be up to TV, movies, then you're going to get a very different kind of kid than you want. And it's great that your brand is going after that, and that's your mission, to help guys become their best and become leaders and serve their community. Because I agree, I think that so many of our culture's problems and world's problems would be solved immediately if every single dad just went home, tried to be the very best they could, and we wouldn't have to worry about some of the mental health issues we have, some of the crime issues we have. So many kids are from fatherless homes or from homes with fathers where they're not taking that role seriously, and it shows up in every single aspect of their life. Where they might be obese, they might be struggling at school, they could have mental health problems, and yeah, I agree. If dads took that role seriously and went home and just tried to be the very best person they could, then we would instantly solve many of our country's problems.
Yeah, 100% agree, man. I mean, you talk about media, social media, news, politics, whatever, right? It seems like there is a concerted effort to reduce the role of the father in the home, to reduce the role that masculinity plays positively in society. And that's why we're seeing a lot of those problems, right? And it's really easy as an individual to take a look at that and say, all right, I want to create massive change, right? I think everybody would raise their hand and be like, yeah, I want to change. I want the culture to change, right? But it's a lot harder sometimes to take a look inward and say, okay, I'm not going to be able to change the world by myself, right? I'm going to have to first fix what's going on inside with me and fix what's going on in my home, right? I've got to get my house in order first in order to create that change. And so that I think that's what happens with policy a lot in the political sphere, is we try to throw Band-Aids on it, right? Of, hey, poverty, we'll just put in a better welfare system, whatever, right? But if you look at root cause, what's actually causing the poverty, right? It's more often than not that family unit, the traditional family unit has been broken. The father is either not home, or if he is home, he's not being present, he's not being engaged, he's not being the leader that he should be to support that family. And so that's going to impact the kids, right? And now that's the kids' normal when they grow up, and that's how they're going to treat their family too. So I think it's, you really have to take a look inwardly and say it starts with you as the individual to make changes in your life. And then ultimately, again, that's going to cascade down through generations, but then also that's going to create a broader societal impact because people at the workplace or friends are going to start to see you level up as a dad and start to, one, hey, you get in a little bit more shape, or two, being a little bit more present with your kids and responding as opposed to reacting. And they're going to take note of that, right? And they're going to ask you what the heck you're doing. So that impact that you're having in the home is going to cascade again across the society too.
What do you think is one of the biggest issues that men are going through right now that's causing them to reach out to, fatherhood figures, men's groups, or really need that kind of guidance? Like, what is it that's happened these past 10, 20 years that really is inside making men not feel that fulfillment, sense of purpose, and just lacking?
Yeah, so you hit it on the head, and you kind of said the answer out loud is purpose, I think, is the big one, right? And I would say purpose and really not knowing like what the role of a father should be, or having a good figure to look to tell them what a father should be. And so not knocking our prior generations, some of the most amazing human beings we've ever seen were in World War II and Vietnam, but a lot of times when guys come back from war, they're going to compartmentalize things, right? And probably not be as emotionally present with their children as they could be. And so I think that's part of it is just generations past, but really it comes down to purpose, I think. And media, our cultural environment right now does a great job of just throwing a lot of stuff in your face that is going to distract you from what that purpose should be, right? So I think that's a big one, is having a clear vision, having a clear purpose. And then if you don't have that, you're going to try to fill the void somehow with negative actions, negative habits. So that, and then also I think there just hasn't been a great role model or framework around like what a man should be. Just because again, society has just attacked masculinity left and right. And the moment you step up and want to be competitive or something like that, like you get knocked down. But I think there's a lot of good that comes along with masculinity that we need. And so we haven't really had a good example of what that looks like, or a framework of what that looks like. So I think wrapping a framework around that and combining that with a clear vision and purpose is going to go a long way.
So how does the purpose and fulfillment in a man's life is a tough concept to wrap your head around, especially if you don't know what that's supposed to be. You could say find your purpose. Well, a guy's like, well, yeah, what does that mean? Like where?
Yeah.
Like I'm an accountant right now. I go home, I watch TV, I'm hanging with my family, go to sleep. I still have this empty feeling inside. Like, what do you mean my purpose? What is my purpose? So what would you tell a guy like that? Like, what's out there that I'm not missing or that I am missing?
Yeah, so I would say that feeling that you get, of that emptiness that you have, is going to be a good sense to you, and kind of good, punch in the gut that you don't have the right sense of purpose, right? And that feeling that you have is a sign to you that says you need to go out and find that purpose. And so I would say that, one, I just want to put a framework around like what a man is. And I think you'll find a lot of purpose in that. So I've recently read a book. Now that I've had a son, I read a book called The Modern Day Knight, or Raising a Modern Day Knight, by Robert Lewis. And just a tremendous book. You guys should absolutely go out and read it, whoever has sons that's listening. But he puts this frame around raising children. And as you raise them to become men, they really have to know like what men are, right? Like what do men do? What makes up a man? And he gives 4 principles to follow. And I think just these 4 principles alone will really help you define like what your purpose is. So number 1 is to accept responsibility. A man accepts responsibility, right? So anything that's going to be within his home is going to be under his responsibility, under his care. And then also that comes out to the broader society too of like, hey, if you see a piece of trash on the ground, hey, that's your responsibility, pick it up. Even if you didn't put it there, it's your responsibility to pick that trash up, right? So that's one, is accept responsibility. Number 2 is reject passivity. So none of this passive aggressive stuff, right? And say what's on your mind, speak what you actually think, is another one too. And I think a lot of guys, definitely over the past probably 4 to 5 years with cancel culture, this has been a big one of guys like having a different point of view than the mainstream narrative, but being afraid to step out and say it, in fear of being canceled, in fear of losing their job. And like, that's a real fear. But again, a man rejects passivity. That's what he does. So I think, if you have that conflict inside you that you want to say something, or you want to take action on something, and it's telling you to do it, but you have that fear, like that is your internal dialogue telling you to do it and to reject passivity. So that's number 2. Number 3 is to lead courageously. And so this comes to the home, this comes to the workplace, this comes to your community. So, to lead courageously, at the end of the day, people are going to be looking up to you, whether you're a leader, whether you think you're a leader or not, right? And especially if you take those first 2 principles and take action on those, then you're going to be a de facto leader, right? And people are going to look. So having the courage to step out and to lead courageously, is going to help fulfill that purpose too. And then finally, it is to accept the higher reward. And so this is speaking specifically to religion and Christianity, that our time here on the earth is limited, and we should be acting accordingly in life, expecting that our higher reward is going to come when we merit with our eternal Father, right? A life after death. And so I think those 4 things are going to help you kind of wrap your mind around like, what is a man? What are the values that they have? And I think that is going to help you define what your purpose is, if that makes sense.
The Modern Day Knight is that book?
Yes, or Raising a Modern Day Knight, by Robert Lewis.
I'll post that. Raising a Modern Day Knight. All right. Yeah, that sounds like one I would really be interested in, and I'll share that. That's great. So having a framework of what a man is, for guys could help them find their purpose. Now, sorry to dig into this, but is a purpose a specific thing, or is it a way of living?
Yeah, so this is a great question, and it's one that I struggle with a lot, right? Like I find myself to sometimes having a lack of a clear sense of direction or purpose. And so it's something that I think every guy wraps their head around.
Lots of guys do, which is why I'm kind of slowing down and going over this.
So I would say my opinion is it's not going to be like a definite answer on this as to like, my purpose is to, create this product that's going to X and Y and Z, and then once I get there, like I'm done, right? I've met my purpose. Like I think it's a moving target, and I think honestly it's really about like the way you're living your life. It's like my purpose is to live according to these values. It's a good way to look at it too. What's your opinion?
I don't know. That's why I'm honestly. There's another reason why I'm talking to you about it, because it's something that's not solid in my head either. I've always thought that having your purpose is a specific thing that can change, because as you age and as you get more wise, as you learn things, your goals change, and who you are changes, and what you want to do changes. So like for you, you might say, with my company, maybe you could say with my company, my purpose is to impact thousands of men and help them. Mission statement,
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that is, or maybe it's not. So that, and if you said it was, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's a good purpose to have. But at the same time, if you said my purpose is to live my life according to these principles, so that my son sees me as a hero, and he then treats his wife like this and his kids like this,
Mm-hmm.
and then they treat their family like this, and I create an infinite effect. So I'm living my life according to this. Then I could say, yeah, that's a good purpose as well. And
yeah, I would say I would agree with the latter one. I think more than having. I would say your purpose is more about how you live, not versus what you do, right? Because what you do can change. You're going to have this job, you're going to have that job. Not everybody is going to start their own company and go create massive impact in the world. Like, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be different phases and seasons of life where you're doing different things. But I think, if you're more in alignment of I want to live my life by these ideals and these values, and that's my purpose, then I think you're going to be much more fulfilled. Because, and guys fall into this all the time, right? Of like, we set a goal, like a very like materialistic goal, of let's just take the fitness world, for example, of like, I want to run a half marathon or whatever, right? And they're like, all right, that's the goal. That's my purpose over the next,
Yep.
9 weeks or whatever it is. And then you train your butt off, you're super motivated, and then you cross the finish line, and it feels great for about 10 seconds, right? And then you're like, all right, now what do I do? So I think tying yourself to a specific result as your purpose is probably going down the wrong path, right? It needs to be tied to the actions and the values that you live your life by, not necessarily what you're going to get out of it or what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that also is, whenever you're very outcome based, it also sets yourself into constant mind traps of only, not enjoying the year-long process it took to get to this goal.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or saying, you also kind of tie yourself down. Like, I was talking to another guy yesterday who lost like 100 pounds, and he was an alcoholic and he did drugs. And he was saying, if I set my goals as what I thought they were going to be 10 years ago, I would never have reached where I am right now. He's like, I am miles past where I thought I was. He's like, all I focused on doing was becoming a better person and doing those things every single day. And I'm amazed at where I am right now. Like, I would have never thought that I could have reached this point.
Yeah. And I want to even dive a little bit deeper in that too, now that we're in this discussion. So I think what you can do, really, like the secret here, the trick, is to tie that purpose to what you're doing every day, from a habits perspective, right? Because to your point right there, right? Like, that guy, set this goal, or if you would have set kind of a more short-term goal, he would have gotten there and been like, all right, cool, I guess I'm done. I'll just maintain, right? Or he would have put the weight back on, potentially. But because he tied his purpose to the activities that he can do on a day-to-day basis, of like, I don't know what this guy did, but maybe it was like, hey, I got to hit my calorie thing. I've got to get these steps in. I've got to do my daily meditation or gratitude or whatever. And he knows as long as he hits that and enjoys that process, like, ultimately the result's going to come. Like, it may happen quickly. It may take a lot longer than you want, but like, by focusing on the day-to-day, like, that process is really where you're going to get the fulfillment. And I have to constantly remind myself of that. Because we're as a company, we're fairly new. We've been around about a year and a half or so, but I feel like we're just now kind of like launching the business. We're just starting to see some hockey stick growth, which is cool. But it's like, it's freaking chaos, man. I'm doing everything. I don't have any employees. It's like, it's all me right now, and so like, I'm living in that chaos. Yeah. So I have to remind myself, right? Like, hey, this is the fun part,
Yeah.
And
you're gonna look back on these days as the building part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So 0 employees, all you?
Yeah, man. All me
Every
for now.
email?
Every email, every DM, every package you get, I packed it. I handwrote the note. I put the sticker in there. Yeah, it's a lot for sure.
So you got
But
this. Just because I want to take away some guys' excuses, because a lot of people say they're too busy. So you've got that. You also have a full-time job, right?
I do, yeah. So I have a full-time job. I won't state who it is, but I've been in the corporate world for a pretty good while now, and at
Yeah.
a high, fairly high executive role, too. That's very demanding on my time.
Father, husband.
Yeah, father, husband in the National Guard as well. Have a dog. So
Which can wake you up in the middle of the night.
yeah,
Probably.
more the 1-year-old. He's the one
Yeah,
waking
I'm
me up
sure.
in the middle of the night right now.
Yeah, so busy guy doing it all yourself. Now, you said some good growth happening right now, so let's dive into it. Like, what's causing your recent explosion, do you think?
Honestly, I don't know. I think we go back and tie it to that conversation we were just having on like consistent action on like the daily stuff. It's just been a lot of like me speaking into the world and probably like maybe one person was listening. And then I just did that over and over and over and over and over. And then now all of a sudden people are starting to listen. I mean, I'll dive in a little bit more than surface level there, but like ultimately that's it. It's just like taking the consistent action. Even though, when you first start, like you suck and nobody listens. And
Yep.
if you do a live, like you're speaking to yourself, there's nobody there, but then you just
Yep.
go on the next week and do a live again. Right. And then maybe a month from now, 2 people are on and it just starts to snowball. So that's it. Like I said, we've been in business for, a little over a year and a half. It started with no following, and have grown that pretty substantially. Started a podcast about a year and some change ago.
What's the
and
name of it?
It's called the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast.
Yeah.
And go check it out. It's definitely not as good as yours, Chris. But you can check it out.
You've got better. I really love your branding.
I appreciate it, man.
It's all on point. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you could spend some time.
I'm a marketing guy by trade, so I enjoy doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, you do a great job of that. So Epic Dad Legacy Podcast, everyone.
We're a little over a year on that, right? And it's the same thing. It's like you go back and you look at the episodes, and it's like, all right, episode 1, 3 people listened, right? Episode 2, like 4 people listened. Episode 20, like 10 people listened. And then it just kind of like all of a sudden just starts to like, okay, cool. Like a lot of people are listening now. And it's like, I'm not doing anything different really. It's just like the consistent action and like not giving up when it gets tough,
Yeah, that's the tough part. It's not giving up when it gets tough. Because in anything anyone tries to do, losing weight, stuff with their finances, with their family, during the early morning wake ups and just the sucky part of it, like you just want to go back to bed. You want to just say, man, it could be so much easier if I just didn't try this hard right now. Like this morning I woke up. I've been working out early before my job. Then I've got my own routine I do. And I woke up 3:45, drove to the gym, and I was looking for my gym bag, which has my key card in it, and I left it who knows where. I didn't know at 4 a.m. So there's no one at the gym at that point, just one guy who can't even see me. So I'm just hoping someone walks by, and no one walked by. So I'm just standing outside. I'm like, I'm wasting my goddamn time right now. Because it took me 15 minutes to drive there. I stood outside 10 minutes. I was like, I'm just going to go home, get some stuff done. But it was cold out. I was tired. I got home. I was like, why am I doing this? I could be sleeping. Do I really want to be in shape that bad? And then, all this stuff comes in. It's like I could just go back to sleep, but I got these emails to write and I got this stuff to do. So, yeah, I mean, whenever it's during the moment of, you're under the squat bar and you're like, man, I got 5 more reps to do. Oh, my God. You think you could barely do 1. It's just so easy to want to stop it. But if you don't quit and you do it over and over and over again for years or a year and a half, you're like, man, shit's finally starting to actually happen. This is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the compound interest effect,
Yep.
And it's tough, man. And I think that's why it's important that you tie what you're doing every day to a greater purpose, right? And it needs to be not materialistic and like KPI driven, right? Like it could be, on the fitness front, all right, I'm doing this every morning. I'm fighting through it because I want to lose 20 pounds. All right, great. Well, what happens once you lose 20 pounds? Are you going to stop?
Yeah.
Right. So I think like you have to tie it to something greater. And like I said, I'm not, like I said, I struggle with that just like everybody else of like, being purpose driven and really defining what that means. But I think you can, if you know that that's the case and there's a compound interest effect, then I think you can stack your life accordingly to make sure that you get stuff done even when you don't want to get it done. And I think that's a big thing too. Of like, hey, if I have to get up at 4 a.m. to go work out and my alarm goes off, I really don't want to get up. Like, how can you make yourself get up, right? Because once you get up and start moving, then you're going to be good, right? But it's like that 2-minute period, right? Like, okay, what can I do? What can I put in my life to make sure that I actually take that action? And that's where it has been really helpful for me. Because I'll be honest, I have like the loudest bitch voice in the world in the morning when that alarm goes off, and I've been
inside your head.
Yeah, and I've been guilty of this in the past, and sometimes it happens occasionally now too, but a lot less. So just like, shit, man, I am not doing this. Like, I'm going to sleep. Like I stayed up all late last night. My kid was up and blah 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 blah. Like I had the biggest negative emotional talk, but like just figuring out ways that you can shut that down is going to be big, because once you start shutting it down enough and often enough, then it starts to go away over time. But it's like that interim period between like you're just getting started. Like you're going to have to put in some things in your life to force the action that you don't want to take.
Yeah, that inner dialogue, and a lot of guys think like they're the only one who has it.
Dude,
like,
no, everybody has it, man.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm not a morning person. Yeah, no one's a morning person. Every single no one wants to get up early and go to the gym when they could be sleeping in. It's much more comfortable to be in your bed for every single man out there.
Yeah.
So what are the specific things you have in place to beat down that inner bitch voice?
Yeah, man. So in the morning, when the alarm goes off, first is I set it in my bathroom. So I have to physically get out of bed and go to my phone to turn my alarm off. Awesome. So I do that. And then sometimes, like I said, I have the worst inner bitch voice ever. Sometimes that doesn't even work, right? Like I'll struggle my way in there, and then I'll just be like, blah, and then go back to bed, even though I walked, 20 feet to go turn it off. Yeah. And so I have downloaded, and this is like super tactical, but I've downloaded this app, and it has been like the biggest needle mover for me over the past 2 months of like more than anything. It's called Alarmy, ALARMY.
Heard of that.
And it makes you do these like little challenges when you first get up. Like it makes you like solve a math problem or something. But like for me, like to turn your alarm off. But for me, what I do is I took a picture of my coffee pot downstairs. And like that's what I have to go take a picture of to turn my alarm off. Like there's legitimately no way to turn my alarm off, and it's gonna wake my family up if I don't like go down and take a picture of that coffee pot. And like by the time I get down there, right, like I said, you got to start stacking these things in your life to make you take the action. So like when I get down there, I take the picture of the coffee pot. Like I'm still tired. I'm still like, fuck, man, I just want to go back to bed. Like I got my alarm off, but right next to my coffee pot every night, I put my 20 ounces of water that I'm gonna chug immediately. Right, and that's gonna help me wake up. And then I've got a pre-workout right next to me, right next to my water. So I do a water pre-workout, and then I slam those. And now I'm
V2?
like, V2, man, yeah. And then now I'm like, shit, I'm awake now. Like there's no turning back. So like by putting those things in my life, one, having to get out of bed, go to the bathroom, and actually walk and move. And then once I get my phone, I gotta walk my ass downstairs, take a picture. I've got my stuff set up for the night before so that I don't have to think about it. I just take that action, and I'm ready to go. Like that. Yeah. That's been a game changer for me.
That's great. Alarmy is the app. Yeah, I bought a sunrise LED lamp that has a timer on it, and it goes off 5 minutes before my alarm goes off.
Nice.
And it's kind of off the side of the room, and it kind of looks like a sunrise. And for me, I also have to have my heat on. Like I need it cold when I go to sleep and warm when I wake up. If it's cold in my house whenever I try to wake up, it's impossible to get out of bed. So like right at the time, about 30 minutes before it's wake up time, I've got the heat right where it's comfortable to get out of bed, and then I have the sunrise lamp up, and just those two things make it easier. Not easy, but make it easier for sure.
Yeah, and like there's some guys, and I have friends that are like this, that are like, man, I wake up and like my purpose just like, shoots me out of bed, and like I'm just freaking ready to roll, and I'm just like, dude, that's not me, man. Like I'm once I'm up, I'm motivated, but like I need a little assistance, you know what I'm saying? So like that's why I stack it,
Yeah, and that's I do hear people say that, like I can't wait to get out of the morning. As soon as the alarm gets off, I jump out of bed and start my thing. And if it's not like if you don't feel like that, you're still not doing a good job. Like,
yeah,
if you don't feel like that and you get up anyway and do the shit you have to do, then that's almost more impressive because it's like you're following your purpose and mission. Yeah, you're beating down that bitch voice and doing what you have to do anyway. Because for most guys, we're not like I talked to Steve Eckert of The Project last week. Badass guy, runs an amazing business. I mean, he's taking guys into the mud. He's working with like Navy SEALs and Marines. Like, yeah, that you wake up, you're doing that with guys. Yeah, man, I'd want to do that too. But if you're waking up and you're going to your engineering job, and for an hour and a half before that, you're trying to build this side hustle. It's like, yeah, you might not jump out of bed, but you have to grind through that shit to get yourself moving. And that's still the fun part, kind of, because you're looking once you have your business, and once you have whatever, it doesn't have to be a business, whatever you're working on, like you need to look back on those hard times as like the sacred times. Like, yeah, man, that's when I was in it. That's when I was building it. And that's something that I try to constantly think of myself too. Like when I'm building something, physically or business wise or anything, it's like, yeah, I'm not where I want to be right now. Might never be there, but I have to enjoy what I'm doing right now, or I'm going to miss the entire point. Like it's not like when I arrive here, and we kind of touched on that earlier, when I arrive here I'll be good, because no, then you just set the next benchmark.
Yeah, there is no destination, right? Until, like we talked about before, that fourth expectation, right, or the higher reward, and that's me personally. That may not be you guys, that don't have kind of a faith aspect of your life, but for me, that's what it is. Like there's no end destination, right? Until we head on down the road,
Yeah. Okay, so you have 3 kids. Youngest is 1.
Yes,
right?
Well, 1 next week. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm gonna go get his first haircut today. So, looking fresh.
Yeah, that's great. How old's the oldest?
She's 6. Yeah, she'll be 7 here in April.
Okay. Yeah, we have 2, 9 and 7. And it's wild. Yeah, we're done with our kids. Sometimes people say that's great. It's like, yeah, good things happen. At the same time, I was like, man, I miss having a 1-year-old around. Like that would still be nice. But then whenever you say you're woken up in the middle of the night, also it's like, yeah, I also don't miss that part of it as well.
Yeah, it's great, but going back to like the baby stage is difficult for sure.
Yeah, it is. And then you always look back at everything differently. But I do remember so many nights of just like falling asleep with my son or daughter on my chest and just being like, man, doesn't matter what else happens in life. Like this is as good as it's gonna get right now.
Yeah, and we made the decision not to have any more, and like we've like clinically made that decision, if you know what I mean. So I'm just trying to soak up like every moment with him, And same thing, man. Like I rock him to bed every night, and he's just like right there on my chest, and I'm just like, dude, this is just like the most amazing thing in the world, man. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's like a little moment of heaven. Like whenever you're a grandfather and you look back and you see your kids, you'll think back to that moment and be like, man, I'd do anything just to go back to there right now and have my son or daughter laying on my chest right now. It's amazing. Like you can't take these times for granted, because my God, they get older so fast.
Yeah, and it's so stressful too. I mean, having a baby, it is. But we just keep coming back to that. Like you got to enjoy the process, right? Like that's like the good stuff, And so, trying to like not react negatively when your kids, screaming or whatever, and just enjoy it, man. Like they're gonna grow up like really fast, and be gone, right? And so like you've got to enjoy the minutia and the chaos in the middle, because like that's what life is.
Yeah, it is chaotic. And I was just right before this, I was talking to another guy who's trying to build a bar, and he's got little babies at home, and he was saying he was struggling with some other stuff, and he was like, man, I can't wait till it's easier. He's like, I can't wait till I reach the, I was like, man, there is no easier.
Yeah, you've been waiting for a long time.
That's the thing. Like, you got to accept that it's just not going to be easier forever. And as like the man, as the father, like, this is what you do. You put that all on your shoulders and you just keep on grinding.
Yeah.
Like if you don't want that to happen, then okay, give up on your goals and dreams and just take the road of comfort. But kind of with that road of comfort, sleeping in is comfortable, not working out is comfortable, eating whatever you want is comfortable. It's like, yeah, it's hard to progress in life and to go after your goals. So bad news, there might not be any end destination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's definitely not comfortable, man. But I think that's where you find growth. Is in the discomfort. So whether it's like hard workouts or just putting yourself in an environment to where you don't want to be, but you do it anyway, like that's where you're gonna have growth.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Let's talk about more digging with your kids a little bit more. How have they been impacted by what you're doing with the business or your focus on fatherhood recently? Have you noticed any changes, or are you involving them in any way?
Yeah, so I involve them in my emails. So if you guys
writing them?
Yeah, if you guys get an email from me, if you buy anything, it says like, hey, don't worry about the glitter in it. Like my kids are packing it up. Mm-hmm. And like there is some truth to that. Like they'll come in here and help a little bit too, which is fun to kind of expose them to some of that stuff, right? Like I've got this little app on my phone. If somebody buys on our website, like I'll shoot them a quick thank you video. And like they're in it a lot of times, so like they understand like what the business is. But really like just having this focus on fatherhood over the past couple of years has had a tremendous impact on like the way that I'm showing up as a father, because I'm like, hey, if I'm having a dad company and like, I'm like, go be an epic dad, like, well, shit, I better be doing this type of stuff too, So I think like, and the bigger we've grown, the more, whether I like it or not, the face of the brand I've become. And like people are listening to my podcast, people are watching our Instagram stories, they're looking at the content I'm putting out, and so like I better be aligned with our mission, or else I'm a hypocrite. And like, not saying that I don't struggle with that stuff, because I do, and I try to be very open about it. That like, although the company is called the Epic Dad Company, like I'm not the epic dad. Like it is an ideal that we're all striving towards, right? Like myself included. But yeah, it's helped me be a lot more intentional with my children. A big turning point for me for starting this business too was COVID. But prior to this, like I said, I'm still working in the corporate environment, but prior to this, I would leave at 4 a.m. I would get home about 8, just to put them to bed, and spend 30 minutes, a day with them. And even though those 30 minutes were great, and like I would show up and I would be there, I didn't have my phone. I'd be like just with them, doing bath time, bedtime, etc. Like, once COVID happened and we started doing work from home, like the world shut down, I realized how much I was missing, in my kid's life. Like I just wasn't there. So that was a big eye opener for me, and really just changed the way that like I want to approach fatherhood, just to make sure that when my kids look back, like it's not just, I don't want them just to think like dad was a good provider, like from a monetary perspective. Like I want them to think back and say dad was a good provider because he was there, right? Because he was there to teach us lessons, because he was there to listen to us, to be emotionally engaged with us, and to teach us along the way. And I think a lot of dads struggle with that of my job is just to put food on the table or just to put a roof above people's heads. And like, that's my job. I'm checking the box. But like when we say we want to provide, it's so much more than just providing financially for your family. It is providing, that leadership that your family needs too. So yeah, it's been a huge impact, man. It's just given me a whole different lens on fatherhood. And it's been so cool to see, the impact it's had on my children too. They're 6 and 4, right? So we've got a lot of runway ahead, but I feel great with where we're at right now. They know they can come to dad with anything. And that's what I want, to be ultimately, is when my kids, I always say like when my kid is, 17 at a high school party and she has, something to drink, even though I don't want her to, and she knows she's not supposed to. I want her to be comfortable enough and trust me enough to know that, like, all right, I'm going to call dad for a ride, rather than hop in a car with somebody, just because I know that dad is there to support me, right? Like, no matter my decision, he understands me, he accepts me for who I am, and he loves me. So that's just, like, I always think about that too, just like the long-term lens, and like how the actions that I'm doing today helping to support that, like their future.
Absolutely. Yeah, having that long-term vision is important. Like, if I'm doing this today, these are my habits, this is the way I interact with my kids, and what is this going to grow in them 10 years from now? Like, what are they going to look like when they're 17, 18, leaving the house because of what I'm doing right now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm, based on whatever my drinking or eating habits are, for example, like if they're watching me every day from 0 to 5 doing one thing, what are they going to look like whenever they're 18? And that's why fitness and health is so important to men and fathers out there, is because it's not just you, it's your kids who are watching you
Mm-hmm.
every single day. And obviously that's a big focus of yours and mine as well. And for me, working out with my kids very often, with my son, it's every day. My daughter does it. I don't force her. Whenever she wants to, she works out with us. She does CrossFit and jiu-jitsu with us. But them working out has been such a huge blessing and growth for our relationship. I mean, they bust their ass. They try hard. We talk as we do it. We share experiences. We talk about our past workouts, and they look forward to it. And we're at the point now where if my son thinks we might miss a workout, like if we don't do it in the morning, we have to do it in the afternoon. He's like, "Dad, we're going to do a workout today, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, don't worry. We're going to do our workout today. It's going to happen." I would never forget that. I would never break my promise to you. One day, like 200 or something, he wants to do a year straight. And someday it does take convincing. But, we haven't broken our streak yet. But the way they watch the fathers at home has such a massive impact on who they become and what they're going to be like, when they're 17, 18 years old, when they're in college, when they're living by themselves, or when they're married. And it's the thing, fathers have an infinite impact. Whenever our kids have their own kids, they're going to treat their kids the same way. And that's like, man, not to put the pressure on, but yeah, there's pressure on what we do every single day. Has there ever been any, habits maybe that you saw in your kids, you're like, I better change something I'm doing right now? Like for me, I'll go first because it's a negative thing. But like I can be sarcastic. And I remember the first time I saw my son being sarcastic, I was like, "Oh shit, I gotta fix that," because he said something sarcastic to my wife. I was like, I want to curb that anyway. So I had to really tone down the sarcasm.
I mean, a big one for me. Again, I'm not the epic dad. The epic dad is like the ideal that we strive towards, right? So I struggle with this stuff. But I am growing a company, right, and work full time and all this other stuff going on. So like, I'm constantly on my phone, whether it's DMs on social media or like the website or creating posts or blah, 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 blah. And I try to make a good habit of like putting the phone down, being intentional with the family. But I don't sometimes. And like, I'll get caught. It's funny. Like my 6-year-old will look at me, and just like give me this look like, "Dad, put your phone down. Come on." Like I'm right here, So, I mean, that happens to me quite a bit. I wouldn't say quite a bit, but it's very, it has a big impact when it does, right? When your kid looks at you like they're disappointed in you, So that's a big one. I don't know. Yeah, I'd say that's probably it for right now. Like that's the biggest one for me. But yeah.
And when your company's internet based and you're on social media a lot, I mean, that's just a fact of it. You have to be on your phone a lot. When you're getting clients and you're processing orders and doing updates, like, unfortunately,
yeah, it's hard to shut it off.
Look at that thing.
You're kind of working 24/7.
Yeah, whenever you do shut it off, you in the back of your head, you're like, I could be missing something right now. An order might have came in, I didn't get to shoot that video to the person. But yeah, that definitely happens. So where do you see TEDCO going from here? Like what's the growth?
Yeah, so I'm kind of splitting out TEDCO into like 2 different verticals. There's going to be the supplement side, so I'll kind of give you guys like some insight into where that's going. Our goal is to help dads be better in 3 areas. It's better leaders, better athletes, and better providers. And so like the first supplement we came out with is a pre-workout. So obviously that's the athlete kind of vertical that we want to help guys with. And that was very intentional, because, and we've already talked about fitness and the importance of that in your life. It's really one of the things that you have like direct control over, right? Is, hey, am I taking care of my body? Am I getting my workout in? Am I eating healthy? Right? Like those are things that like you control. Like a lot of other things in life, you can provide some inputs to it, but like the output ultimately maybe outside your control. But like with fitness, outside of a few, very rare circumstances, like you're in control of the way your body looks. You're in control of what you put in your mouth, right, to eat. And like that's just an action you can take, and like you can hold yourself accountable and be disciplined to do it. And the results that you see, and even more than that, the habits and the discipline you build from fitness and nutrition, that's going to have a positive impact on everything else too. So like that's where we wanted to start, was like fitness, like very, very intentional about fitness. So we launched our pre-workout to help out with that. And then we've got 3 additional products we want to launch this year. As long as we hit all the targets that I want to, we'll launch those. And again, those are just going to be, it's going to look a lot different from your traditional like gym supplement company. Traditionally, you would think, okay, a pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout, right? But we're kind of staying away from that. And we actually want to go more into like the health and wellness space. So we're going to have a sleep aid that comes out. We've already talked about lack of sleep, right? But if you're a busy dad, the sleep that you do get, you want it to be very effective sleep. And so we're going to make sure that even if you're just getting 5 hours, like we want you to get in a REM cycle like as fast as you can, get that effective sleep so you wake up and like you're recharged, you're ready to attack the day and support your family. We're going to come out with a hydration mix, like an electrolyte hydration mix that's geared towards our athlete pillar as well. But it's really geared towards just like your routine, your morning routine as well. I mentioned that when I get up, the first thing I do is I chug water. There's a lot of science behind that, right? You're dehydrated from the night before. Water's obviously going to help hydrate your body. It's going to help your mind kind of get reactivated too. So what we're doing is launching an electrolyte mix that you can use as part of your morning routine, just to have right next to your water, right? Mix it in, chug it down, you're good to go. And then it's also great for endurance athletes as well. So that's one of the products. And then the last one we'd like to launch this year, if we can, is a focused nootropic blend. And that's kind of our provider pillar, right? Or like a leader, is you want to be able to go into the office, be effective, be efficient, and get your work done, but then be able to make that transition as a dad when you get home, be able to put the phone down, which I struggle with, but be able to put that down, be present, intentional, right? And so that's kind of what the lineup looks like for this year. There's probably about 50 I have up on a board up here that we'd like to roll out, like when the time is right. But ultimately, everything that we come out with supplement-wise, one is going to be 100% natural. So that's really big for us. Most of our audience, obviously, are dads, and they're, probably mid-30s, mid-40s, and it's a lot more important now to be cognizant of what we're putting into our body, and not just like roll down to Walmart and pick up like the C4 on the shelf that has all kinds of crap in it that you don't want. So everything we have is going to be 100% all natural. That's very important to us. But then everything we launch is going to basically try to solve a specific pain point for a dad, like for a dad. And so that's going to kind of help us inform like what the product roadmap looks like. Is like we can just pull our audience like, hey, what's a challenge that you have, right? And a lot of what we get is a morning routine. And so that helped inform like, okay, cool, we're going to come out with a hydration mix, right, to help you with that morning routine. So that's kind of what it looks like from a supplement side. And then where I'd like the company to go, the other vertical, is in kind of content and coaching. We don't have anything like that yet, but we get asked constantly, do you guys have some type of either fitness programming or, just kind of like a coaching program for dads? And we don't, but that's something I get a lot of fulfillment out of, obviously, is the content side, and really just like serving our audience. And so I'd say probably around summer of this year, we'll try to put something together. It's probably not going to be great, to be honest with you, because I've never done this before. But much like everything is I'll do it, and then I'll continue to do it and continue to do it until it gets really, really good. But that's kind of it. So it'll be two different kind of business verticals. It'll be the supplement side, and then we'll have a group coaching side as well.
Now, for the coaching, you're thinking like fitness coaching, or
yeah, a lot of it's going to have a very heavy fitness component, because we've already talked about how important fitness is to really every other part of your life, and so that'll be a big component. But I think that's going to like get guys in the door probably, right? Of like, hey, we're going to help you get in shape and get you ripped. But like the result of this program that's not the goal. That's just going to be like an effect that you get from going through the work, right? So yeah, like I said, it's not fully built out yet. We've kind of got a framework of some of the pillars that we want to cover. And we always talk about in the Epic Dad is kind of dividing your life into 4 pillars. It's BRMF, and you can remember it by Be Real Motherfucker. But it's just body, relationships, mind, and financials. It's kind of our 4 buckets. And so the coaching program will take us through each of those 4 pillars, and have exercises, have meetings, really to help you level up in all of those. But yeah, definitely a heavy fitness component to it. And once you get done with the program, we want you to be in the best shape you've ever been.
We will end it there, sir.
All right.
Thank
Perfect.
you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris, for having me on, man.
I appreciate that. So what do you want people to know about you? And we covered some of it, but where do you want them to find you?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram is probably the best spot. Just the Epic TEDCO, on Instagram. And then you can pretty much find everywhere else, from there. That's kind of our central hub. So having the courage to step out